I just want to get your thoughts on SP500 supposed to be 10% a year thing, whereas in Bitcoin is like a 75% down thing in the last 2 years, and if we go historically, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, you framed it up so well before you asked the question. So we've covered a lot of ground, but I think it starts with this core basic premise. We as humans, we as on this show, we do not want money. Money is not wealth. What we want, what wealth is goods and services. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the wealth of the world is made up of all of the technology and the buildings and the food and all of the assets. That's the wealth. Money is just something that we use to acquire those things. So we want money only in the sense that we can store our wealth there, our energy there as a placeholder until we're ready to get the actual wealth of goods and services that we want. And the reason why it starts with that core basic premise is then because you understand that everything is a trade. So obviously before money, it was a barter system. Everything was literally traded, a chicken for an egg or whatever, a chicken for a cow or whatever. Yeah. Money became that meat of exchange that allows us to have that common meat of exchange. We don't actually have to, right? The coincidence of wants is what it calls. It solves that. So if we understand that, then we can start to go, oh, okay, so what it is I'm really trying to get the thing that I want. So for example, you said that for you and for me as well, Bitcoin is sort of that medium, or I'm sorry, that's like our base layer. That's our hurdle rate, right? That's the thing that we're trying to get more of. We believe that Bitcoin is the superior store of value. And so for us, we want to store our wealth in that. So then we could start measuring against that. But for somebody else, we might want to look at, what is the median home in the United States in ounces of gold, in tons of rice, in barrels of oil, in Bitcoin, right? And so different people, Peter Schiff wouldn't agree with you, obviously. He'd look at it priced in gold, right? And people have been doing that forever, and you mentioned that before the fiat era. So really the question comes down to, what are we measuring in? And the problem is, somebody who used to be in the real estate space, I've built many homes, when you develop a set of plans, all the plans have like numbers. Now, the U.S., we're on our own standard for the rest of the world. The rest of the world's on a metric system, we're on a standard. But for the most part, we have this established unit of measure. So when those plans go from the architect to the builder and each tradesman, they know exactly how to measure the doorway and the windows and these types of things. But if we didn't have the standard of measure, how could we coordinate anything as simple, not that it's that simple, but as building just a home, right? And so the problem is, what are we measuring in? And what is this standardized unit of measure that we can use? And of course, because gold was this decentralized and neutral reserve asset, it made sense to measure in that. The problem with gold is that the supply can fluctuate depending on the price, right? People are mining more of it, people are mining less of it, et cetera. And so the question then always becomes, what is the best form of measurement that we can have? And so for you, as you mentioned, retirees have sort of, and most of Wall Street, most of the investing world sort of measures everything against the benchmark of the S&P 500. That's their benchmark, because that has been traditionally in TradFi the best benchmark to use, right? It's been going up more than gold. Right. So for them, that's what they call, that's their hurdle rate. Anything they can generate above that would be alpha. Now, the problem, as you've laid it out here, this chart that's on the screen shows that while the S&P 500 might be the benchmark for Wall Street and TradFi, it's getting completely smoked by Bitcoin. And so I think there's a couple things that we want to understand about this. The S&P 500 represents the best public companies in the world. Now, historically, going back to Warren Buffett and Benjamin Graham days, those companies, the S&P 500 would grow based off of the growth of those companies, based off of the economy, right? Based off of growth. The problem that we have today is that the S&P 500 is now disconnected from the economy. The S&P 500 now is basically a proxy for inflation, to the point that you're bringing up. And that's the point Jesse made earlier, right? So we saw this firsthand. If anybody doesn't think this makes any sense, just look at 2020, when the entire world was literally shut down at one time. Every business shut down, everything was shut down, but yet markets made new all-time highs. Yeah. And so we can see now that it's the money printing, it's the liquidity that's driving those up. And so now if you overlay a chart, what you showed was the S&P 500 and inflation. The problem with that chart is that inflation is measured by off what the government gives us, CPI. Now, the government changed. I didn't hear Jesse talk about this. The government and really the powers that be, the media, started pushing this term CPI, I believe, in around the 1950s. And it was the godfather of the Austrian School of Economics, Ludwig von Mises, said, hey, warning, guys, like they're trying to change the definition of inflation. Because inflation used to be when the money supply increases, like a balloon. If I blow a balloon up, I'm inflating the balloon, I'm increasing the volume of air in the balloon. And inflation was increasing the volume of money in the ecosystem. And Mises warned, hey, they're trying to change the definition. And the reason why they're doing this is so they can confuse everybody. Because I don't know, why did TVs and electronics go down, but yet education went up? And there's no rhyme or reason. So it certainly can't be the money increase, right? That's why that definition was changed. Of course, Rothbard told us, right, inflation is always a monetary phenomenon. So when you look at the government's CPI reported number, it doesn't show the real chart. What do we have here? I can't. Is this the money supply?
Oh, we were updating so that we could speak about the.
So now we have the SP 500 and the money supply. Okay, right.
Exactly.
So look at the SP 500 and inflation. Hey, we're beating inflation. Congratulations, guys. We're all making money. But when you overlay it with the money supply, like a global M2 money supply, you see it's just a perfect proxy for inflation. And so it's the illusion, right? So for most of these retirees and people that are investing in their accounts, they look at their statement and think they're getting rich, but they don't feel more rich. They can't buy more things, and that's why.